Hi, I'm Steven Simcox. Alex Frank is back with us, and we're going to start today talking some NFL draft TCU players at the Combine who could show out with their testing numbers. We'll discuss that and more next on Lockdown Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's Locked On Horned Frogs. You can subscribe on YouTube, also wherever it is you get your favorite podcast in its audio form. I am Steven Simcox. You can find me on Twitter at SimcoxSteven. If you missed it last week, we had a guest, Alex Frank, join us, and he's here with us again this week. We've had a number of fans on recently. Alex has been communicating with me back and forth the last few weeks. He's really passionate about TCU sports, recent graduate. And so we're going to get to basketball in a minute. I threw up an episode last night about the Frogs win over Texas, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk more kind of big picture, where the program is, where they are in the season in segment 2. But I wanted to start today with NFL Combine. Testing, measurements, all that stuff starts today, and there's 9 TCU players there. I'll quickly run through the names. Allen Ali, Steve Avila, Darius Davis, Max Duggan, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, Dylan Horton, Quentin Johnston, Kendre Miller, and D. Winters. And Alex, we've seen the Combine, I think really in our life, like as we've grown up, it's gone from, oh, this is kind of a funny thing that happens, to an actual 3-day event. NFL Network is broadcasting around the clock about what's happening. The NFL draft has become like its own entity. But this is a big deal. Like, this is a chance for these guys to show off for NFL scouts. So my question to you first is, who do you think out of this group could really help their stock with the athleticism that they could display over the next few days?
I would say Quentin Johnston, first and foremost. I mean, he really, one of his main upsides in potentially being a wide receiver 1 is his sheer athleticism. So he has to put that on tape to make that case. Darius Davis, really, really crucial. They're projecting him to be like a Cavante Turpin style player in the NFL. So it's really important that he shows his I believe he has a 4.36, which is just as fast as Tyreek Hill. So he's a little speed demon, for lack of a better word. And then Max should be able to display his running ability, as kind of assert himself as that dual threat backup option. But in terms of sheer potential of the group, I think Kendre Miller, honestly, or Steve Avila, in my mind, have the best opportunities to be very, very good pros. Not just in the Combine, but all the other intangibles, like Steve Avila, pretty much a sure thing. There's questions about his upside as opposed to other offensive linemen, but scouts project that he will come in, make an immediate impact. And with Kendre Miller, I mentioned this a little last week. He's kind of just trucking and a violent runner. And he's a lot faster, like you said, than people realize. So all those traits coming in, especially with his strength and elusivity, make him have some good tendencies for the pros.
Those are some good thoughts. I agree with you on some of that. I'm going to hone in on one guy that I think can make himself some money this week. And it sort of I'm going to kind of double up because it kind of combines with the player that I'm most concerned about. So
Yeah.
I think Darius Davis, and you touched on it, he has to run a good 40. Like, it's just imperative. If he can run in like the mid 4.3s, like you were talking about, that's fantastic. And if he doesn't, not that it's like the end of the world, but as the season went on last year, Darius obviously showed his potential and just what he can do on special teams. And so that's a huge deal. But in the NFL now, we've seen kickoff returns have gradually become less and less important. Punt returns are still a big deal, but there's not as much of a path as there used to be, I think, to be like just specialty return guy. Now, your point was good about Cavante Turpin, and he ended up in the Pro Bowl this year, and he did a really good job for the Cowboys. But it's always a fun idea in theory. People are like, okay, you have this great return man. That means you should use him on offense. Now, like, you look historically, even a dude like Devin Hester, which he might be a Hall of
Yeah.
Famer. I mean, he only had like 3,000 yards receiving for his career. And it was always, Alex, this being a Bear, being in Chicago, it was like every offseason, it was like, man, they gotta put Devin out there wide and get him the ball 10 to 15 times a game. But the reality is they just don't really manufacture touches for those types of players in the league. And I think I would love to be wrong about this, but for a guy who only had one game in his career over 100 yards receiving at the college level, I would be a little surprised if all of a sudden Darius just becomes like a really reliable, slot receiver, even though that would certainly give his, draft stock a huge boost. But I think for him, there's a path for him to be a contributor in the NFL, but it really is contingent on his athleticism and speed, and can he be a return guy, because that's kind of but I want to go back to you as far as whether it's Davis or somebody else, the guy that you don't necessarily can't make it, but like you just have some reservations about them at the next level.
Sorry, what was
the player? The TCU player of this group that you have some concerns about as a pro. You're not sure like what their role is going to be.
Yeah. Sorry, the stream broke up. Yeah. Again, I think it's Quentin Johnston. He seems to have the biggest bust potential of the entire group. No other prospect really shows kind of ceiling and floor. And most of that comes down to his routing ability. I mean, he doesn't really run route tree. I love the guy. I think he has a lot of potential. But there, he has tendencies, if you watch his game, that are not ideal at the next level. So body catching, and you could see that throughout the season, not really using your hands to get the ball like a JSN type receiver, but more using your chest to cradle it in. You can't really do that at the level. And again, he has to show that he can run a full route tree. So.
Yeah, I have some questions about Quentin too. I mean, I will say, I think he had one season where he was in kind of a functioning offense with a clear identity, and he did well. He excelled last year. But yes, I think there's inconsistencies there. He's going to have to figure out how to run better routes. Yeah, the body and catching was an issue at times. And, to be frank, like, it's a different coaching staff, so this is not really in some ways it's not relevant, but there's not been a great history of TCU wide receivers at the next level recently. Like, Jalen Reagor has struggled. He's a totally different player than Quentin. Josh Doxson is a guy that I think has some similarities to Q. Sure. And it didn't work in Washington. He was banged up a lot, but you saw some of that, athleticism, but somebody's going to fall in love with him. I know that because he's a freak. I saw him throw down a dunk like between the legs the other day. He's just one of those special guys that you can't teach that stuff. So, good thoughts there, Alex. Combine going on right now. I want to transition to basketball here in a second. Before we do that, though, I do want to mention FanDuel, one of our great sponsors. FanDuel is the place to be if you want to wager on sports. They have an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. You can go to fanduel.com/lockedon to take advantage of their no sweat first bet. You put as much as a $5 bet down, and you can get up to $1,000 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel. They're the official betting sponsor of the NBA. That's in full swing right now. Playoffs coming up. If you want to bet on the money line or some specific props, you could do that. Major League Baseball is right around the corner. They'll have plenty of betting options there. March Madness coming up as well. FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon. And you can take advantage of that no sweat first bet deal. Again, they're the official betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Okay, so TCU beat Texas last night, which was awesome. And it was a rough game for Mike Miles. He was 0 of 12 from the field, only had 1 point. But they still got it done. They won 75-73. Now, Alex has some interesting thoughts on a couple different topics, but I wanted to start with just in general, and I think you sent this out on Twitter last night. You don't think this Texas team, excuse me, is as good as their record might say. And so, did you come away last night disappointed that they didn't win by more, or what was sort of your thought process after the game?
Yeah, totally. I think analytically, when you break it down, I think when healthy, TCU is a top 10 team. The analytics clearly show that. John Rothstein, continuously says TCU is the highest ceiling of any Big 12 team, which I believe, if you actually watch their games, it's absolutely true. With concern to Texas, yes, I do. I really believe that they're extremely overrated. Like Alabama, they have a lot of consistency issues, and they have some amazing athletes, but chemistry at times looks a little off. They can get a little sloppy with ball handling. One of the commentators mentioned this last night, but if Texas is dribbling a lot, they're struggling because they have to get it down quick. They're a fast tempo team. But yeah, speaking of FanDuel, the line was -2.5, actually -3.5 TCU. Vegas really loves the Frogs when they're healthy. And I just thought that they would play better. 22 turnovers. You could debatably say that was the worst showing for the team as a whole. I would argue the Kansas game, the second one, but it's neither here nor there. I think the main issue is cleaning up those turnovers. But man, if I ask one thing, guys, it is I really hope that no one on Twitter rips on Damian Baugh ever again. Without his efforts, wouldn't have won at all. He was absolutely incredible in making things happen from the paint. Really good dribble drive penetrator. Really impressed with him. And then Emmanuel Miller just bodying Texas all night. He's going to be really, really, really special when he gets another year in him. And I see NBA flashes with him, but it's more I'm thinking the tournament where he can actually just shine because he's so athletic and he has such good physicality that he can easily control the boards with anyone in the nation. So this is all good in retrospect that Jamie, keeps pushing the team in the right direction. He's experimenting with more of a small ball look. I tend to like that. So yeah, there are definitely some negatives from last night, but a lot of positives as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about perspective. I came away just encouraged that they were able to win a game where they didn't play super well because they've been in a lot of those this year. Kansas, the second time around, is a good example where defense kind of kept them in it, effort and energy sort of kept the game close, but when it came down to it, they just couldn't get it done. And so on a night where Mike didn't shoot the ball well and you turn the ball over a lot, you still found a way to score 75 points and win the game. Yeah, Damian was fantastic. I think he's going to still be a lightning rod. Like the next time he has a bad night, people will go after him. And like we're reacting to these things in real time. So to a certain extent, that's understandable. Miller was good. I feel like it's the first time in a while his mid-range jumper looked good, looked smooth, and looked like he was in a rhythm. And I feel like that helped him, play with high energy and effort yesterday. So I don't know. This team, they're good. They have clear limitations. They don't shoot the ball well. They're probably going to turn it over a good amount. And I still, late in games, it seems like Jamie just wants to play ISO ball with these guards. And I don't know how effective that is. It got them a few buckets last night, but the half court offense when the game slows down is a concern. I mean, they just don't get quality looks. It really is about guys making tough shots. And I don't know if they can do that if they get to the second weekend. But that's a whole nother discussion because I got to get there first. It does sort of bring me to another point, which I want to hear your full opinion here on this because you texted me this and I didn't, I kind of got what you're saying, but not totally. You like where this team's going in general. I get that. But then you also feel like they played better than maybe people gave them credit for with Mike and Eddie out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the way in which they played generally when Eddie and Miles were out was very flawed, obviously, but it also demonstrated the level of depth on the team to me. So, like, firm example, you can look at Baylor. I mean, that was a really tough loss, but I mean, a lot of dudes stepped up that day, and TCU probably should have won that game. Oklahoma State, great show of resiliency, and just it not being able to come through with it during the clutch because of the reasons. I mean, that was a firm example of what you just said, playing the half court ISO ball, like at the end of the games, like against Oklahoma State, that was a clear display of the limitations of that style. So, yeah, I think that the program is moving in the right place generally. For years to come, like I stand by that for sure. Like if you look at the players they're going after in 2024, it's really exciting. Without Jamie Dixon, I don't know if this is possible personally, but yeah, we need a solid tournament showing, and I truly believe that they are Final Four potential when they put it together. The issue is you can't have that many turnovers in Sweet 16. You just can't. So that's where we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle. I just don't think they shoot well enough to get that far. But I think if they ran into the right matchup, there might be a path. But the direction of the program is intriguing. I feel like next year is going to tell us a lot, and part of it just depends on who comes back. Like you mentioned, Emmanuel Miller. I would love if he comes back for another season. If he does, then this team's gonna be a lot better. But you're probably losing Miles. Not sure what Eddie's status is since he hasn't played a lot this year. Anyway, all that to say, your recruiting class is pretty small at the moment. Now they do have a shot at Dennis Evans, and PJ Haggerty will be in the rotation next season, I think.
Didn't
And
Dennis Evans already signed with Minnesota though?
so he signed with Minnesota, but he asked out of his letter of intent, and so he's back on the market. I don't know. It sounds like Louisville. It sounds like it's trending Louisville, but they're at least in the mix there. Apparently, Dennis just wants to hit all the worst Power Five schools in the country, going to Minnesota and then in Louisville. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, they have an opportunity, and I'm sure they'll hit in the portal. Next season there'll be a lot more uncertainty, so I want to see how they do. But there's clearly like Jamie is. I know some people get frustrated about the style of play, but he has a clear vision and foundation, which is he's going to get guys that play tough, play hard, and that's going to win you a certain amount of games. So I like where they're going to, and we'll come back here in a second and wrap things up. That's some basketball talk. We got a baseball weekend upcoming, and Alex is actually going to be in the stands there. That's coming up next on Locked On Horned Frogs. Okay, final thing for us. So TCU baseball, they're going to play at Minute Maid Park this weekend in the Shriners Classic for children. I'll say this: that field is usually pretty stacked. I think this year is a little more muted than usual, but a couple good programs. Really, historically, a lot of good programs there. They'll play Michigan on Friday, and then they play Louisville on Saturday, and then Rice on Sunday. And I didn't think about this until I saw it again, but yeah, the Michigan game, rematch of the college football playoff. So that's sort of funny. But Alex, you'll be in attendance, right? You'll be there Friday afternoon for that game against the Wolverines.
Yeah, I mean, my sister and her boyfriend live in Houston, and they all went to Ohio State, so we all just relish in watching Michigan fail.
Lose.
So, yeah.
So they just have a hate Michigan brigade there, which is a good deal.
We were really close to a family showdown in the national championship.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Who was that kicker that missed that kick? I can't remember.
Noah Ruggles.
I might dislike him more than anybody because I feel like that game. I think that game would have been closer if he would have hit that. But
yeah,
it's neither here nor there. That's intriguing. I didn't realize your family was Ohio State heavy. That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, they play Michigan, they play Louisville, they play Rice. I'm intrigued to see this pitching staff, what it looks like this weekend. They had some young guys that look great on Tuesday. So that's coming up. Alex, what's kind of on your mind with the baseball team as you go down there to check them out Friday? What are you looking to see?
Yeah, I want to see more consistency on the hitting side. I know it's going to be really hard to replicate this, but at least flashes of what we saw against Arkansas or Vanderbilt would be great. I think you and I said this over text, but just the pitching staff is pretty locked in right now. No pun intended. And I mean, that DBU game was crazy. Just a complete defensive showdown. And then Trey Richardson coming up in the clutch and making a big hit. It's really all that's needed. Just don't overthink the process. And really love, I believe this is his second year, but I really love what Kirk has done. I mean, the transfer class that he brought in is part of the reason why we are in the top 10 right now. And if we can just win out this weekend, which is going to be difficult, but still realistic, we can probably pop down to number 7, number 6, which would be really, really nice. Kind of butt up against those SEC schools, show them how Big 12 plays baseball too. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing if we can get some more hitting consistency. That's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it's tapered off since that huge weekend. I think part of that was Nunez being out of the lineup, but now he's back, so hopefully they can get back into a good rhythm against Michigan and then Louisville and Rice. So that'll do it for today. It is Locked On Horn Frogs. I'm Steven Simcox. That's Alex Frank. It's your team every day.